Hello guys, welcome to Green Aqua. This is a live event and we have a very special guest today, and he is coming from the UK. He has been a very good friend of ours for many years. Actually, he was inspiring us at Green Aqua. We were reading his post from the UKAPS forum, UK Aquatic Plant Society. He was one of the founding members of it, and I will just show you Nito. Tommy, can you show us the main title? Yeah, so his name is George Farmer. This is episode 8 of the Green Aqua Live series. Let's wait for George. And all right, big applause. It's like a boxing game here, right? Welcome to Green Aqua, my friend.
Thank you, Balazs.
It's really nice to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Alright, Andres, check out his very special t-shirt. I really love that.
Yeah. Keep on scaping.
Right.
That's my catchphrase.
Oh, what's that red thing?
The red colander, that will be out later.
Can you say that again? What's that?
Colander.
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 So you strain, normally you strain vegetables with it, but I always fill aquariums with it. Every tank I've ever done, I've filled with my red colander.
Alright.
Okay.
Okay, George, I will just let you go, and I want to tell the viewers. I want to tell the viewers that this is going to be a live event. Mm-hmm. The live event is going to take place here in the Green Aqua Gallery in Budapest, and it's going to take about 2 or 3 hours, depending on how fast and professional George works, and how professionally we could actually prepare all the plants and hardscape and everything for him. So it depends. It's a teamwork, and we have a lot of colleagues who have been working on this broadcast. Maintenance team members, marketing team members, sales team members. So a big thanks to everybody who was helping us here. And also I would like to present you another distinguished guest. Please join us, Alex. So Alex is... Hi.
Hi.
Alex is the Tenel sales representative and country manager here for us.
So I should address myself?
Yeah, please also address. And
nice t-shirt also.
Yeah, nice t-shirt. Check out the back of it.
Yeah.
50 years, oh my god.
50 years on the market, yeah.
50 years on the market, and...
I thought you were younger.
Not me.
Okay, so anyway, Tenel was kind enough to sponsor this event with a lot of plants, and also some other stuff, substrate.
Substrate, the soil.
The soil
some
and
gravel, plant gravel.
Yeah, and Alex is going to present while we are using all these products, and George is working with them. Alex is going to show us how these products work and what's special about them, and how they compare to other products on the market, and why they're good, why they're bad.
They're the best. What do you expect?
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
So
sure.
So let's go on, and without further delay, I will give the word to him. So go.
Okay. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Do you all speak English? Yeah. Okay. Cool. If you have any difficulty, then Victor will translate. So yeah, my name is George Farmer. It's a real honour for me to be here today. I think Balazs introduced me. You know, we've known each other for many years, and we go way back to when I co-founded the UK Aquatic Plant Society, and Viktor and Balazs were very active, and we became good friends, although I'd never actually come to the shop until yesterday. So it's a real honour for me to be here. I've always looked up to the shop. It's been an inspiration for me. It's very different. You're very lucky to have a shop like this. There are very few in the world as good as this one. I've been all over the world, so I kind of know.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You can pay me later. It's an amazing shop. It's it's inspiring. It's not a typical shop. It's more of a gallery. And that whole concept, I think, it is really cool. And for me, it's all about promoting the hobby, and that's why I'm here today to promote aquascaping to you guys, hopefully to make the process maybe a little bit easier if you're a beginner, or if you're more advanced you might learn some new tricks. But please ask me any questions throughout the workshop. If you're not sure of anything, or you want to know a little bit more knowledge about one particular thing, then please do ask. I am here for you guys. Okay.
And this is also valid for all those viewers that follow us on Facebook.
Yeah.
So you can post your questions to the Facebook, and
I will answer.
George will answer it.
Yeah. So I'm hoping we have a good Facebook audience. I did promote it on YouTube and my own Facebook. So shout out to all the Facebook audience as well. Give us a share as well, and we'll get the aquascaping message and love spread all around the world really, really well. Okay. So please do use your phones, take pictures, maybe video of the event as well, and share it. And let's just really, you know, get aquascaping, the message just spread far and wide. Okay, so what am I going to be doing today? Well, this is a custom built 120 centimetres by 45 by 45 centimetre low iron glass, no rim, no hood. In aquascaping, it's all about minimising any equipment. So we don't want a hood. We want to be able to see into the aquarium. Let's just have a little look about the aquarium itself. Yeah, so we have two ADA solar lights here. Solar 1, which is metal halide. These may or may not be upgraded to the new RGB LED ADA further along the line. And we're on a custom built cabinet as well. Inside we have two Epic filters. These are large EHIM externals. One of them is a thermo filter as well. Pressurized CO2 kit. We'll talk more about that later on. Can I just have a show of hands who uses CO2 in their tanks at home already? Okay?
Not yet. Can you keep your hands up so that we can see who?
Okay.
Right.
Okay, cool. So about half of you. Okay. And can I just have a show of hands who regards themselves as an aquascaper already? Okay, cool. Just so I can gauge of the sort of knowledge levels you guys are at. So beautiful setup, all minimalists, clear silicon. I think this is 10mm glass, very nice. And in aquascaping, the starting point is getting the right equipment. So it's important to invest in the right equipment, because if you buy cheap, you'll end up might replace it. It's quite soon, or you just won't be happy with it. You'll just wish you invested that little bit more money and bought something better. So best to maybe save up a little bit if it is expensive, and then invest in that really good equipment, and then you'll be very happy with it. So really nice setup. It's a classic size, 120, 45, 45, about 240 litres of water. Gives us lots of room to play with, which is what I love. Okay. So we're going to talk about the nature aquarium concept, and I'm sure most of you have heard of a guy called Takashi Amano, and without his work and his work in aquascaping and his inspiration, none of us, this shop wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be here. You know, we have a lot to thank to Mr. Amano for. He sadly passed away just over 2 years ago, but his legend lives on. His work is reflected all around the nature aquarium hobby, around the whole world. So we still really embrace it, and it's a beautiful part of the hobby.
Okay.
Yes, so just to have a little talk about the books that he's written. He's written loads and loads of books, but the two most important books for me are his first book, Nature Aquarium World, Book 1. Hands up who's got that already? Anyone? If you haven't got it, I do strongly recommend it. It is quite hard to find these days, but it is an amazing book, and it introduces you to the nature aquarium concept. It gives you an insight into Takashi Amano's mind and how he came up with the nature aquarium concept. And then the second book, The Origin of Creation, is his kind of final book before he died. So that's quite an emotional book as well. So my background in aquascaping, I discovered the work of Amano with Nature Aquarium Book 1, and I got given it for Christmas, and I opened it up, and it just literally, it blew my mind. I was like, I knew about aquariums, but I'd never seen anything so beautiful. as a nature aquarium, and there's something quite deep within me that connected with this nature aquarium concept, and I knew that was what I wanted to do with my hobby. I was a very beginner hobbyist, but I knew that was the direction that I wanted to take it.
UKAPS, just tell us about the UKAPS a little bit.
Yes, of course. So my hobby developed quite quickly. I became a bit obsessed about it. I learned as much as I could, I read as much as I could, and I kind of created a bit more interest in the UK. I started writing for Practical Fish Keeping magazine, which is a very famous UK aquarium magazine. I still write for them now, and that was in 2006. And then as the hobby kind of grew slowly in the UK, we had the opportunity to create, me and a couple of friends, we created the UK Aquatic Plant Society, which is still going very strong today. Some of you might be members. I know these two guys are. We have about 25,000 members, and we've just been very passionate about promoting the hobby. So, and one of the best ways to promote the hobby is face-to-face things like this. So I can hopefully get my passion across to you guys through these workshops. I go over the world doing them. I do, most of them are UK. I am from England, but places like Hungary, I've been to Poland, I've been to Germany. I'm in Germany on Thursday, in fact, doing a workshop. So I get to travel the world, and it's a fantastic kind of, it's a blessing, and it's a real honour for me to be able to do my hobby, because I'm a passionate hobbyist, but I'm also a professional as well. So those two things combined is a very, very lucky thing for me to be able to achieve. So should we move on to the actual aquascaping itself then? So we talked about the nature aquarium concept. What is it? It is about getting a slice of nature from outside and bringing it into the aquarium. And we're not necessarily copying nature directly. There is a style called the diorama style, which is about actually looking at a landscape scene and then just shrinking it and putting it in your tank, and that is a very popular style at the moment. However, we're not going to be doing that today. I'm going to be using the classic, what I like to call the classic nature aquarium, which is the one kind of Amano. It was Amano's own style, and that's more about having an essence of nature, not a direct copy of nature. And this is a really good example on the screen right now. Nice, beautiful islandscape, which is kind of the direction we're going to be going in here.
And this was done by Mr. Amano, and it was present in the Niigata Gallery in Japan.
Okay.
And we were there with Viktor in 2013.
Wow.
So actually this is a photo by Viktor.
Okay, very cool. So the nature aquarium philosophy is it's all about nature, and it's about connecting with nature, and I think that's really important. A lot of us live very, very busy lives. Some of us might not even have a garden. In England, in London especially, space is very, very limited, and some people have to live in a small apartment where they don't have any outside space to appreciate. So, you know, they can have a nature aquarium in their home, and they can have this slice of nature. They can be connected with nature, and I think that's a really cool thing, and I think it's a beautiful thing. So with regards to the actual aquascape itself, I'm going to be going for more of like an island composition, which we kind of had a look, we saw that on the screen just now. I've got some beautiful materials to work with. The shop has an amazing hardscape collection, one of the best I've ever seen anywhere. So very, very lucky. We've got some, we'll talk about the actual products in a moment in more detail.
We can step out just for 1 second.
Yeah.
And show them.
Yeah, cool. Let's go and show the audience.
Just 1 second, then we'll be back.
So huge wood collection here, stones, all the types of rocks you can imagine, just really, really cool. Absolutely sport for choice. But I have done a practice layout here, which is the kind of vibe I'm going for. So you can see ADA hornwood and then Frodo stone from our good friend Adam Paskela in Poland. So this is the materials we're going to be using. So I'll just grab this right now.
Well, we're going to help you.
Okay.
Guys, can you come help us with the hardscape? So we're going to bring it in
Okay,
for
perfect,
you.
thank you. I'm not used to this helping so much. Okay, so the guys are going to bring in the hardscape for me. I did have a little kind of experiment and practice earlier outside. There's a really cool little space where you can practice your layouts, which is really important. And when you're buying hardscape, the hardscape process is a really, really important part of the whole aquascape. So I like to see the hardscape as the backbone, the skeleton of the aquascape. So when you're a human being, we obviously have a skeleton, and then around the skeleton you have your muscles and your flesh. Whereas in the hardscape, I like to see the hardscape as the skeleton, and then the plants, the fish and the water, they are like the body, the main body. So if you start off with a strong hardscape, like in a human, if you have a strong skeleton, then it's more than likely you're going to have a strong body and a strong overall kind of aesthetic. So let's talk about the stones here. One of my favourite stones at the moment in the hobby, and it's actually quite hard to get hold of in the UK. This is called Frodo stone. Some of you may have seen it already. It comes from Poland, and it's full of character. And when we're choosing our stones, we need to think about its character. You need to think about the textures, the colours, and the more interesting it is, the more kind of attention grabbing it is, the better. You don't necessarily want to be using, smooth pebbles, big pebbles. They tend to be a bit boring, maybe.
Tell us about how the stone changes water parameters.
Yeah, so one of the great benefits, the advantages of this type of stone, it has absolutely no influence on the water chemistry. So it won't increase your pH or hardness, or won't decrease it. So absolutely fine to use in aquascaping. To compare it to Siriu stone, which is limestone based, that will certainly increase your GH levels and your pH. And that as you're injecting CO2, the pH etc. tends to fluctuate more, and it's not so. I would say it's not so good for the aquarium environment because it's not so stable. So if you can use a rock which doesn't influence the water, then that is a good thing. So I'd always encourage people to buy loads of hardscape, buy more than you need, because as an aquascaper it's always good to have options. Don't just buy what you think will fit in your tank. Have a play outside in the area there, and get loads of it, and then just kind of, if you've got a garden at home or a shed, or your partner doesn't mind you hiding it under the bed or something like that, then just get as much as you can. Because as you become more interested in aquascaping, you'll want to create more aquascapes, and the hardscape is the first kind of part of the process. So I always encourage people to buy more hardscape than they think they need. Better to have too much than not enough. So let's talk about wood. This is beautiful. This is ADA hornwood. And again, we're looking at the character. It's got lots of gnarled branches, lots of areas where you can potentially attach plants to very easily. I'm hoping it's not going to float, but we'll make sure it won't by doing some little tricks which I'll show you later on. But yeah, beautiful wood, loads of character. And just one top tip, when you are choosing your hardscape, try to choose the same type. So you wouldn't necessarily want to mix up different types of wood or different types of rocks, because it looks odd. And going back to that nature aquarium principle, it's trying to create something of an essence of nature, and in nature you'd very rarely see two different types of rock together or two different types of wood together. So just try to think about a coherent theme to the layout, if that makes sense. Okay, so that's the hardscape. Beautiful products. I can't tell you how lucky you guys are to. Is everyone from Budapest area? Has anyone travelled very far? No. You travelled 200 kilometres. Wow, that's dedication. Thank you for coming. So, very, very lucky. You've got some great hardscape, some of the best I've ever seen. So that's really cool. Okay, we're going to talk about the substrate now. We're going to install the hardscape a little bit later on. Before we do that, we'll put the substrate in. So, this is a Danelei product. I can talk about this. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Unless you really want to, but it's fine. No. So I've been using this a lot lately. It's a substrate start. So in an aquarium, there's no bacteria present unless you're using a mature filter already. So it's a good idea to give the substrate a kick start with some bacteria and that's what this product does. And interesting, I've been learning a lot more about substrates lately, and actually the substrate needs bacteria in it before the plant roots can start using the nutrients. So the bacteria is actually a really essential part of the substrate system. So Danelei have this called FB1 substrate start, and you have one packet for about 100 litres of water, I believe, and we just literally sprinkle it as evenly as we can along the bottom. And once this becomes wet, it'll activate the bacteria, and then that bacteria is going to help. It's going to help the whole aquarium system. It's going to help the plants, because those plant roots are going to be able to use the nutrients in the substrate, and it's just going to help stabilise the environment in the aquarium. Because what can happen, especially in new aquariums, it can be very, very prone to algae, and beneficial bacteria are very handy, very good at helping to prevent that algae. It's just one of the kind of steps you can take to help ensuring a really good startup on your tank. So it doesn't need to be, you don't need to be too exact.
So how much you need for
100
litres?
So this is 2 packets, so it suggests
1 per 100 litres?
I think, can you read that?
Yeah.
So is
120 litres.
So it's perfect. So 2 packets, this is 240 litres, so that's perfect. Okay, so that's the substrate base layer, if you like. That's the bacteria. And now we have another excellent product. Do we have the Danelei 9-in-1? Did we get that in the end? Oh, I got it in, yeah, cool.
Substrate is here.
Yeah. So this is a great product. We're going to be using lots of Cryptocoryne species, and these are heavy root feeders. If you've never heard of Cryptocoryne, they take a lot of their nutrients from the roots. I'm not used to these people helping. I normally do everything myself.
You want to grab everything by yourself, right? Danelei is opening Danelei products, so.
Yeah.
Thank you,
That, by
Alex.
the way, already has the bacteria inside this
Ah,
product.
okay,
And
cool.
also the feedings, the sugar that it's inside.
So it contains lots of nutrients, and it's perfect for putting right on the bottom of the tank. It's a long-term kind of nutrient content, so really helpful for helping to feed those plants. And this already contains the bacteria, so we're going to have really good bacteria start in there.
Yes.
The feeding for the bacteria.
Okay, so it says
Thank you.
the white bubbles are the bacteria feeding food, actually.
A kind of sugar.
The sugar?
A kind
Okay.
of, yeah.
Cool.
Do you need a sand flattener?
I like to use my hand. We can use a sand flattener if you
I'm
want
not
to.
going to misunderstand that.
Yeah, Lash.
I know, I'm bad.
Very naughty boy. Okay. So we even that out. I'm deliberately trying to keep it away from the front, just for aesthetic reasons. We don't necessarily want to see the different layering at the front. It's nice to have a constant flat aesthetic. If you see different layers, it can look a little bit not so pretty, if that makes sense. Okay, so that's roughly even, that's fine, happy with that. Okay, now there's a couple of options we've got now, because I'm going to be using some cosmetic sand, some quartz gravel, which is inert, and that's going to be a decorative substrate, and then we're going to use some soil as well. Now, one of the big problems with that, the potential problems, is they can mix together. So there's a few different techniques that we can use to help stop that mixing, and I'll talk about them right now.
So which one are we using now?
So now we're gonna be, well, we're not using substrate yet. I'm gonna do rock work first.
Okay.
That's my technique. Yeah. So the style of aquascape I'm going for is a kind of rough island shape. So if you imagine white kind of grey sand around here, then rocks, plants all around here, and then the wood. So we need to have a barrier between the soil and the sand, and the best barrier, and also what we're going to use for aesthetics as well is to use the stones. So I might need some more actually. Is there another basket?
Yeah.
Can someone get some smaller kind of style of that?
Sure.
Yeah, and run it going down to quite small as well. Yeah, thank you. So this is Frodo stone. We've talked about this already. Beautiful stone. And when I'm positioning my stones, I always go for the biggest first. That's our main stone. We call that our master stone, and that's kind of like the main focal point. So it's really important that we position this effectively. It needs to be aesthetically balanced, and so there's a few tricks we can do to help achieve that. So some of you may have heard of the rule of thirds. So if we split the tank into 3 equal sections horizontally, and then we position our main stone roughly about 1/3 of the way along the aquarium, then that should be aesthetically balanced. That's a nice focal point. But before we actually put the stone in, let's have a think about how we're going to put it in. We don't just put it in randomly. We need to have a think about the actual stone itself. How does it look? What's the most interesting side? You know, there's different ways. We could obviously put it that way, that way, that way. There's loads of different ways we can put it. So just have a look. What's the most interesting side? Do I want to have it like this? Or is that going to be too kind of dominant? Do I want to put it like that? No, because that's too thin and not going to look very natural. So for now, I'm going to put it like this. That's by no means the final position. We can always adjust. And if I was doing this at home, and I'd recommend this if you're doing hardscape at home, take your time. You know, have a play, put your rocks and your wood in, and then do as much as you can, make it look as good as you can, and then maybe go away for a couple of hours, go do some shopping or watch some TV or whatever you want to do. Come back to it and then think, can I make that look any better? If you can, then go for it. If you can't, then you know that you've created the best thing you can. So obviously I'm not going to spend hours and hours doing the hardscape. Luckily I've done a few now, so hopefully it will look quite good. So that's our first stone in there. Now I tend to work my way down in size. And interestingly, Frodo stone has there's a few kind of different families of Frodo stone. So some types have a slightly different colour than others. And going back to that nature aquarium thing, we want to have a cohesive theme. We kind of want all the colours to look fairly similar. So just bear that in mind. So again, just looking at the stone, what's the most interesting side? I think this looks lovely here, or even there. So I'm going to position that again, using the rule of thirds, around about here. And then again, working my way down in size. This is a beautiful, look at this, very interesting. So I kind of want to show that off actually. So let's do that. In fact, I'm going to do, let's turn that there like that. In fact, no, I'm going to go here. You can see the textures are very similar when they're not at odds with each other, not competing with each other, so that's a good thing. So in aquascaping, there's two kind of things you can go for. You can go for harmony, and you can go for tension. So this is what we call harmony. These textures are harmonizing with each other. They're very similar. We could deliberately go for something completely different. So if I went for this stone instead, with the white vein running through it, it doesn't have the same texture. If we put that there like that, that would be tension. That's creating tension. And tension is also important in aquascaping. We don't want that. If you have too much harmony, it tends to look a little bit boring. It looks pleasant, but it doesn't sort of grab your attention in a nice way. It just looks a little bit kind of a bit samey, if that means anything to you guys. Samey, too similar. So this one's better. Let's go with that one there. And then just using the same principle, finding out the most attractive side. And then we work our way along and create this barrier that's going to be dividing the sand and the soil. Okay, happy with that at the moment. We can do some final adjustments later. We can add some really small stones just for detailing right at the end, but that's the basic structure in place. Okay, so we can move on to our wood now. So we talked about this already, ADA hornwood. Sometimes it sinks, sometimes it floats. It's a little bit of a gamble, but we will take precautions to hopefully ensure it doesn't float. So when I'm choosing my wood, again, it's all got to be the same type, the same kind of colour. And with the aquascaping, one of the biggest sort of areas for improvement I see with beginners is they often don't have enough height to their hardscape. So we've definitely got enough height here. And again, I'm starting off with the biggest piece. This is our main focal piece of wood. So again, using the rule of thirds, let's position that round about here. You could do some final adjustments later.
Alright, so while George is arranging the wood, the iron wood, I would just like to mention that we have quite a huge audience. At this moment we have 200 viewers, and we have viewers from actually all around the world.
Awesome.
Hello from Mongolia.
That's quality.
California, Italy.
Hello everyone.
So we have also, I think, from Mexico. So we have an international audience here at Green Aqua. If you like what you see, please share it so that other aquascapers will also see and learn about aquascaping. You can share it on all social media channels. Follow George. He's a great aquascaper.
Thanks, Balazs.
And also you can ask any questions from him and we will answer live. So please ask any questions from George Farmer from UK live at Green Aqua. George, back to you.
Yeah, thank you. So you've obviously seen what I've been doing. I'm trying to create aesthetic balance, but also tension. And although it looks like I'm working very quickly, well, I am working very quickly. I am positioning the wood with intention. I know the kind of the theme I'm going for. It's quite a vertical theme, and it's important when you're positioning wood. You put one piece here, one piece there. They have to complement each other, and it goes back to that difference between blending, harmonizing, and tension. So these two pieces are kind of harmonizing, and then we're creating a bit of tension here with this one because this is at odds with this. This is almost like a right angle. So there's the tension. If I just had another piece here and then another piece here vertically, it would probably look okay, but it wouldn't be so interesting, I would say. So then we can almost reflect that tension with this one here, and it can also follow the similar path to these branches here. So there's a little bit of all blending, harmonizing and tension mixed together. Okay. Where's Victor?
On the camera.
Oh, okay.
What do you need?
Can I have someone here to have a look, and you know exactly what I mean? Can we have a stone to fit there It needs to be a similar texture to here and obviously fit.
I'm looking at it.
Yeah, thank you. So it's important when you're aquascaping to take a step back, have a look at your creation. Is there anything that's kind of sore, like a sore thumb? Does anyone know what that means? Sticks out too much? This piece here is actually too horizontal. It doesn't look natural. So I'm going to try and position that. And it's important not to have the wood too close to the glass, because we do need to clean the glass. Well, I don't, but someone does.
That one does.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's a bit better. Let's have a little. And we can attach plants around here. This looks a little bit unnatural here. We can attach some plants around here to soften that, because at the moment it's a bit too harsh. It's not much of a nice transition there. There's a gap here. So I will definitely consider putting some plants around there. And Daniel's kindly gone outside to look for some rocks for me. Get some pegs. So the rock's going to form for two reasons. One is aesthetics, because this is very empty at the moment. We could fill that with Java fern, but we're not going to do that today.
George, the question was, what do you mean by tension?
Okay.
They didn't understand what that is.
Okay, so I'll show you. That's the easiest thing, isn't it? So when we're positioning, let's say we're positioning two stones. We have harmony and tension. At the moment, those are in harmony because there's a strata. The strata is this natural line that runs down the stone, you can see. So those two are harmonising with each other. If I went like that, then there's tension because they're at right angles to each other. And it's not a definite, it's not a this is definitely tension, this is definitely harmony. There is a degree of your own personal interpretation. And that's another key thing to aquascaping. It's how do you interpret what you see? Does it convey a story? Does it convey the theme that you want to portray? And that's a really important point. When you're aquascaping, it's not just a case of randomly putting things in a tank and hoping that they grow well and look good. You have to add these things with intention. Does it help to tell my story? Does it help to convey this theme that I want to achieve? So I'm going to position this stone here, and this is going to, for two reasons. It's going to weigh the wood down, hopefully stop it from floating, and also fill this gap, which otherwise would look a bit too empty. I'm going to remove this stone because it's getting in the way. I'm actually going to do something a bit different. I'm going to put that there, like so, and then I'm probably going to put that there. That's better. And then possibly put one so at the moment this is a bit too dominant, it sticks out too much maybe. It's hard to see. Can I just sit here? I'll sit on there, it's fine.
Be careful.
Yeah, it's a little bit too.
So Alex is showing us the proper way to
we
position.
have instruction for using this.
Yeah.
It's on the other side.
You buy another substrate, then
Yes.
another person.
Provide you with a special chair for aquascaping. It's as you can see, so we have to use
Perfect.
in a proper way.
Okay. I'm going to continue this line down here. That should help blend, create more harmony. Okay, it's still a little bit odd here right now, but we can put some plants in between the stones and it will help create the illusion of one larger stone, and that should make it look much more attractive. Still not very happy with this wood here. Okay, actually that's nice, I like that. So now it's the experimentation time. I've got my basic materials in there, and now it's a case of adjustments to try and create this aesthetic balance, creating any tension if we want to, or harmony, depending on the style you're going for.
How long does it take normally if you have time to do a hardscape? Days or
No, I tend to work quite quickly even at home now. Normally I'm videoing everything I do or photographing it, so, and it's normally for some sort of work anyway, even if it's at home. So I tend to do things quite quickly. But if I was doing maybe a competition tank, I would take a lot longer. But yeah, sometimes you can do something instantly in it, and that's the best thing. You know, go with your first instincts, and quite often, especially if you're quite skilled and well practiced, then that can be the best thing. But if you're not, if you're a beginner, unless you're very lucky, normally it's best to take some time, go back to it, revisit it, make any adjustments. Does it look better than before? If it does, leave it, you know, and just continue until you think you can't make it look any better. Does that make sense? So I'm just putting these putting these small stones in here. They're gonna help prevent the soil from coming forward, and also add a little bit of detailing, which is really important in aquascaping. Do we have any filter floss?
Filter floss, yes, absolutely.
This is a top tip.
All right, so we have new viewers from Azores, Portugal, and also Malaysia.
Wow.
So it looks like the whole world has joined us, George.
Excellent, no pressure.
No pressure. Everybody's watching your creation at Green Aqua, live from Budapest, Hungary.
Thanks, mate. Cheers. So we'll use that later, and I'll show you why in a moment. So I've got a basic hardscaping position. I'm quite happy with it. We've got some amazing materials, so it's almost hard not to create something beautiful. So we're very lucky. So next step is adding our soil. So let's have a little chat about soil. Soil it contains nutrients to help feed the plant roots. This also helps buffer the pH at around about pH 6 or 6.5. It also has what we call a high cation exchange capacity. That means it takes the nutrients from the water, holds it into the soil, and that helps feed the plant roots. It also doesn't need any rinsing, so most gravels and sands you need to clean before you put them in the tank, otherwise it clouds the water. So you just literally pour this straight in, and does it give you an ammonia spike, Scaper's soil?
Not as big as other soils.
No,
Anyway.
but it's definitely worth testing it before you add any livestock, isn't it?
And as you can see, the structure of the granule are very natural,
Yeah.
different sizes.
So I've used this in numerous aquascapes at home and in other retailers, and it is a very good product. Yeah, thank you.
So we had a question from Elena. The question was if the number of the rocks is important. Do you want to have odd numbers of rocks in the aquarium?
Normally, sort of a Japanese superstition, if you like, it is odd numbers. Certainly, if you're working with fewer numbers, then it's better to go odd because it looks more balanced. If you have even numbers, it can look symmetrical. If you had 2 rocks, for instance, that would probably not look so great. If you had 24 rocks instead of 23, then that's not going to be a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're just pouring the soil quite carefully behind the rocks. We don't really want to get any soil in front of the rocks. Because the soil is lighter than the gravel, the soil will tend to try to float above the sand. So, yeah, thank you.
There's a half.
Oh, perfect.
This one.
Thank you. thank you.
How much soil do you want to put on
So,
the aquarium?
so these are 8 litre bags. An 8 litre bag will probably do about 50 litres of water. A standard aquarium at 50 litres. Obviously we're not planting into the front of the stone, so we don't need the soil at the front, so we will use less than normal. Okay, you can let go, thank you. So now, very good tool for aquascaping is the paintbrush, and we can just gently move that soil forward up to the stone, and then we can put some more soil in these little cracks later. Do we have a plastic cup or a small jug, please?
Behind you.
Ah, perfect. Thank you. So prepared, you guys. Excellent.
Well, it is not the first time that Green Aqua has a live workshop here.
So you had Yuri's here. Is that the last workshop you did?
Well, we did workshops after that also, but
Okay.
yeah, well, it was a couple of live events before.
And I think I've never seen such a well organised and produced live stream.
Oh, thanks
So-
for that.
For me, it's when I do live streams, it's normally my iPhone on a tripod, or maybe someone holding it if I'm lucky, and then that's it. But this is just another level. It's really
Well,
cool.
we have this camera moving equipment. This one here. You guys? And this is what I'm using to broadcast you.
Just popping a stone in there. That's gonna.
Oh, very important. Wait. Can you do that again, Hottie? Attila Nader, Green Aqua founder,
Hey!
the mop man.
So I'm looking for any obvious places where there's gaps where that soil might potentially creep in front, and if it look. It also adds another sense of extra detail, which looks more natural, I think. Okay, I think we need some more soil in here. So now we go down to a special soil tool,
Show it again.
personalised Green Aqua. Yeah. Spread the passion. Yeah. So let's fill in these gaps here, nice and carefully.
Actually, we got the map from other hobbyists, so
Oh, okay.
He was a guest, present. Yeah, gift.
Cool. So with soil, you can actually have the soil very, very deep at the back if you wanted. That would create an extra sense of depth.
I'm gonna try to show it here.
I'll put some more in. And because the soil structure is very porous, it's very light. It won't compact like sands and fine gravel. So with sand especially, and if there's no plants in the sand, it tends to compact and become has excess anaerobic bacteria, which will produce hydrogen sulfide, which is very toxic. But with soil, because it's so light, so porous, and ideally you want to be planting into most of the areas of the soil, those plant roots will produce oxygen, and that will help to prevent the build-up of this anaerobic bacteria, which we don't want too much of. So final touches now in the soil, and then we'll use a little trick that I learnt quite recently from a guy called Jeff Senske. Some of you may have heard of him. He's a very talented American aquascaper and co-owner of Aquarium Design Group in Houston, Texas. He came over to the UK and he stayed with me for a few days, and we did a aquascaping workshop at my local shop, and he told me this tip with the filter wool, and he was told this tip by one of the world's best aquascapers, Fukada, who's a Japanese aquascaper, and he's won the ADA contest twice running, which has never been achieved before. So you're wondering what this tip is that I keep talking about. I will do it in a minute. Probably go. Okay, getting there. I'm just conscious of this stone here. Daniel, you have some small photo stones, this sort of size, please. Okay, the special tip, filter floss. So it's really important we prevent the soil from moving onto the sand. It looks horrible, and especially shrimp and other fish, when they dig the soil, they tend to move it onto the sand. I think in Victor's tank behind you can see evidence of that. So what we can do is we get some filter wool, which is obviously inert, it has no influence on the water chemistry, and we can, if we look for any gaps between the soil and the sand, we can plug them. And you can see the white at the moment, but after time that will get discoloured and blend in with everything else, and it just helps to stop this, what we call migration.
People are trying to stop that as well in Europe now, but that's a different kind of thing.
Different story. So we plug
We'll
those.
get into politics at George here. It's aquascaping session.
Yes, sorry about that. So we've got a big gap down here. So it's such a simple idea, can't believe I never thought of it myself, but it really is quite effective.
Why do you use soil in the sand?
Oh, this?
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't need to, really. But the bacteria, thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, there's no point in using it really. But it's not too dissimilar from the gravel that we'll use, and hopefully it will stay underneath, no problem. This isn't as light as this, so hopefully it will stay underneath. Yeah, but it's a very good question. In hindsight, I should have just put it all to the back. But the bacteria here will help anyway. There's no harm in it for sure.
So we've got a question from Facebook from Elena.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think we posted that also.
Yeah, is it?
We talked about it.
Okay.
We have also viewers from Singapore now,
Cool.
and they really some of the viewers really like the idea of using this filter floss.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's a very good idea. I'll use it all the time now. Yeah.
And also they were mentioning the t-shirt that you were wearing. Please tell us once again about it.
So
It's made by?
this is made by Moss Cotton. They do bespoke aquascaping.
I actually have
clothing.
one too. I don't know.
Yeah.
There you go. This is the old version. This is the new version.
This was a
Old style, new style.
yeah. This was a one-off. I believe they're putting it into production now. It was a one-off for me because this red colander is my trademark.
Where's the colander?
It's upstairs actually in the office.
Okay. Can we ask Tommy to bring it down maybe?
Yeah, we won't need it just yet, but we do. Yeah, obviously.
Well, trademark should be here.
Yeah, of course. So just plug in as many gaps as I can see.
This one.
So the red colander, well, I'll talk about it when I get it, it's easier. I'm just going to move that out of the way, push that in there. Put that back. Okay, good. Now we can move, it's going to be for later on, let's move on to our quartz gravel. So quartz is inert, this has absolutely no influence on the water chemistry either. So this is a really good product. It's been pre-washed, I believe.
George,
perfect.
Can you tell us a little bit about this gravel? Alex?
Yes, this is a crystal quartz, the classic one. We have 6 colors right now. You don't need to wash, that's the big deal. It doesn't influence at all the parameters of the water. In my opinion, you don't have to wash it all, you can put it like that.
Okay.
The water, it will be not colored at all.
Oh wow, okay.
The granules are rounded, that it makes very fitable for sanitary fish, for fish with long fins, with
Barbels.
barbels, yeah.
Catfish or barbels.
Yeah, catfish generally. So it got the natural color. So as you can see, it's not exactly a white one. It's white granules, gray granules, even brownish.
Yeah.
So it fits very natural. But as I told you before, we have the black version too, different sorts of brown, also green one. The granules has around 1 to 2 millimeters. So it makes very good for water circulation. So
Yeah.
I think that's all we can say about this.
It's good stuff. I've used it a lot in the past.
Alright, so let's take another look on the fact sheet. As you can see, this is a 120 by 45 by 45 centimeter aquarium. We are lighting it with the 2 ADA Solar 1 lights, and we are filtering it with an Eheim 2080 and Eheim 2180 filters. CO2 is pressurized, and we have the Twin Star Nano Plus sterilizer in it. We are going to talk about that later. And the substrate, the Denelle Baikal and the Denelle Escaper soil have already been put in the aquarium. And then we have, not Baikal?
Not yet.
Not yet. Oh, the Baikal is not yet in. Absolutely. Yeah, but the quartz, natural white
Yes.
crystal quartz was already in now. And the hardscape is ironwood and Frodo stone. So we are going to talk about that also later. And also we are going to talk about the plants
Yeah.
after we are finished with the hardscape. So
I might
back to you, George.
I might not actually use the bical because it's a
Why not?
lot darker than the stone.
I see.
And I think it might be too contrasting.
All right.
Yeah. Sorry. We can still talk about it.
By the way, where do you have it? Oh, it's here.
So I'm gonna ask Alex to bring it here so that we can just share this info with the guys.
Yes, this is the way it looks after it gets washed. You have to wash it several times because it's natural. I will show you. But it looks packed like that. You have down there the Manta Hunter gravel. Different sizes, different versions. We have the bical, we have the real single. This one is my favorite. Maybe in a way it's more. Yes, I mean the color.
Let's sell it to George. Come on, try to sell it.
George,
We're trying to sell you something
George, I
now.
have to try to sell you something, but in my opinion, speaking about the
That
color.
would go better with that, wouldn't it?
Yeah?
Yeah, let's get some of that washed.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
You see?
Are you,
That's why they hire me as a
okay,
seller.
are you sold, George?
Yeah, I forgot about that, to be honest. So yeah, it's a good.
Alright,
good
let's
start.
go. Okay, thank you, Alex. So Daniel sales in action.
Yeah, it wasn't scripted. So I put the cosmetic foreground in the front there, and then there's some areas, some holes if you like, to fill in with it as well. And I've just used a jug. I've tried to stop any gravel getting into the soil at the back. There is a little bit there, but that's no problem because we're going to plant into it. And if we actually slope the gravel slightly towards the stone, that helps create another extra sense of depth. It looks more natural. Almost like the stones are part of the earth, and then the earth has eroded away to expose the stones, to give this sense of age and naturalistic appearance, which is all about this nature, going back to the nature aquarium philosophy.
We had a question, how much time do you need to design an aquarium?
What the concept, the visualization, hardly any. It normally stems from the hardscape that I have available to me. So the beginning part of the process is I analyse the hardscape and I visualise in my mind how I can use that hardscape to create an effective layout, and then it just goes from there really. So I looked outside and I knew I wanted to use the Frodo stone. It's a beautiful stone to work with. I don't use it very often, so it's nice for me as a hobbyist to use something new. And then I saw the ADA hornwood and I knew immediately that was the type of wood I wanted to use. It's really kind of my style of wood. In aquascaping at the moment, in modern aquascaping, the trend is very much really thin branches, mosses, but that's actually not my personal style. I like to use more bold textures, thicker textures, and so that's why I've gone for the hornwood there. Yes, I can see. Yeah. So there's a definite hole in here. I'm going to actually use that small cup again. That cup there. That's clean out. Thank you. So can we get a load of crypts prepared? I think they're still in their pots.
Okay.
Yeah.
Crypts prepared. We have it prepared?
As far as I know, they did.
I think they're still in there. Well, if they're prepared, that's great.
Victor, do you know that if the crypts are prepared or not? They're sitting inside here, I think.
Not because they're not that easy to just use it, so we don't want to just take this into a small pot. It's very easy to just remove.
Cool.
So, after several washings, it looks like that. The color is pretty same
Looks like the
tonality
Frodo stone.
as Frodo stone.
Cool.
Huh? What do you think about it?
Yes, perfect. Yeah, thank you.
You can probably add some detail to the foreground with that.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we've got the washed Rio's Ingu, we've got some smaller Frodo stones, and they're going to be the finishing touches. We're going to focus on the main structure of the aquascape first, and we do the details right at the end. Okay, I think we're pretty much there with the cosmetic foreground with the Denelay quartz gravel. You can see it does suit the stone. The stone has got this same colour in it, so there's a definite harmony there. And then again, we're using the this smaller texture, which is a perfect transition from the very small texture of the gravel all the way up to the larger textures of the Frodo stone. So very nice transitional element there. And then just attention to detail, we can do this at the end, but try to have your gravel as neat as possible, as straight as possible. Helps to, if it wasn't, it would just look a little bit distracting. The tank is beautifully made, beautifully rectangular. We don't want to spoil that with, you know, uneven gravel at the front. Although in some cases you can deliberately go, someone might have a bit up here and then going down here. Depends on the style of aquascape you're creating.
Okay, so for those of you who are just joining us, this is the Green Aqua Gallery here, and we have Mr. George Farmer from the UK
Hello.
with us, and he is caping a tank that is a 120, 45 centimeter size, and this is a Green Aqua event, Green Aqua Live event. The length of the event is about 2 or 3 hours, depending on the quick job that we do, and we are here to learn a lot from a very professional aquascaper who is known all over the world, and we have guests, viewers from all over the world also on our Facebook page. So if you like what you see, please share it. It's going to be available right after the event. The video, you can re-watch it and you can learn a lot from it.
So now I'm just wetting the soil. This makes it easier to plant into. We certainly don't fill the tank up with water because that just creates a real mess. Soil tends to create a lot of dust cloud if you disrupt it too much in the water. So we just plant into a moist soil, and it just makes for a much easier job.
I also like spraying the hardscape and the wood because I can get a sense of how they will look like finally when the tank is filled with water. It gives me a little help in designing the layout.
Great. So I understand the guys at Green Aqua, they use reverse osmosis water and they remineralise that. They have a very cool way of adding, of their whole water change system is very cool. I think the plants prefer softer water.
I will continue doing that so you can move on.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so we have all our plants here. Good. So what I normally do is start off with a foreground. We really haven't got a foreground per se in here because we have the open substrate, but we start off with the smallest plants at the front of the aquascape, and then we move to the bigger ones, and the last ones I normally add are the stems because they tend to flop over and we don't want to start with them, otherwise it's going to cover the soil, so we always use that at the last. So let's start off with our Epiphytes Priscilla, and I know we've got some prepared already somewhere. Is it underneath? Perfect.
It's already prepared here.
Yeah. So this is in vitro, Denolay in vitro. This is tissue culture, so it's been prepared and grown in laboratory conditions. This is really great because it means the plant's going to be free from algae, free from snails, free from pesticides. Sorry about that. And actually you get a lot of plant for your money. It looks smaller than a regular potted plant, but there's actually more plants in there. So they're basically like baby plants. And they require more food, they require more liquid fertiliser than a regular potted plant. So it's important to feed appropriate levels of nutrients from the start. Thank you. So I'm just planning in my mind the planting plan right now. Okay.
Let's show the guys the
Too late.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you.
plants that we have here. So right now we are looking at Epiphytes pusilla in vitro. That's going to be in the foreground, and Cryptocoryne that George was talking about. It's being prepared, and the midground. And we have a new word here on the screen that the people will not understand. I mean, native speakers will probably, but others no.
Rheophyte.
What's that?
So a rheophyte is a type of plant that attaches to your wood or your rock. Some people call it epiphyte. But an epiphyte is actually a plant that grows on top of another plant. So a rheophyte is a plant that you attach to your rock or wood. So Anubias, Spookyphalandra, Java ferns, bulbitis, mosses, these are all rheophytes. So I'm just planting the hair grass just behind the stones there.
Do you need help planting the grass?
Yeah, we can do. Someone can do the same on the other side for me.
Sure, can we ask you?
Szívesen csinálom.
Someone can take this.
So Hungarian aquascaper Nicolette is going to help us here. She has the Hungarian Aquascaping community t-shirt on her. If let me show the logo. Right there. Hungarian Aquascaping community.
So if we go just near the stone along here and then up here as well.
Okay.
So like this sort of.
For about 5 centimeters?
Yeah, perfect, thank you. So Epiphytes pusilla, it's a very small hair grass, won't tend to grow more than 5 centimeters or so. Quite an easy plant, doesn't need very high lighting, although it does tend to do better with good light and CO2 injection. But it's I find it quite easy, quite low maintenance compared to something like Glossostigma or Monte Carlo maybe. And eventually it will create a solid carpet effect. So the plant will produce new runners, and eventually you'll have a solid matte effect.
So we have all the codes here, all the rain codes, and the necessary CO2, temperature, pH, everything is in the catalog. There's the new catalog from 2017, 2018.
So the plants are grown in an agar jelly, which is a nutrient-rich jelly, and it's important that we wash as much of that off as possible, otherwise it can encourage algae growth. It's super rich in nutrients. So we wash that off. I like to flick it off and then give it a massage in some warm water, and that tends to get rid of it, most of it. And then we split that portion. It normally comes out of the pot in one big lump, and then we can divide that big lump into up to 10-20 portions. So I think we've got 10 pots prepared here. We might not need it all.
We like to plant densely. Why?
Yeah, I love to plant as dense as I can. If you think about a new setup, algae is very common in a new setup, and the best way to prevent the algae is to grow healthy plants, and the more healthy plants you have, the more chance you have of fighting off algae. So by planting very densely with the healthiest plants you can get, and you look after those plants, you'll promote very healthy plant growth, and then that will in turn discourage algae growth. So my recommendation, especially if you're a beginner, is to buy as many plants as you can. Try to get a good proportion of them fast growing plants like Rotalas, Hygrophila, Ludwigia, the easier species, Plant really, really densely. Don't have too much light, have moderate lighting, CO2 injection if you can, good liquid fertilizers, good soil, good circulation, big water changes in the early days especially, and then hopefully you won't run into any algae problems. I typically, in a new aquascape, I will plant very heavily if I can, if it's the type of aquascape that I can plant heavily, and then I will do daily water changes, up to 50% every day for the first week, and then 3 or 4 times a week for the second week, and then the third week I'll probably do 2 or 3 water changes a week, and then on the 4th week I can go down to the 1 water change a week, which I always do a 50% water change every week. Some people do less than that, but I find that works for me. I feed a liquid fertilizer every day. That helps to keep the plants well fed. If you don't feed the plants well enough, they have what they call a nutrient deficiency. The plant becomes poorly, and the poorly plant is one of the easiest ways to get algae. The algae will just be attracted to that poorly plant. Okay, so that's probably the amount of coverage I want in terms of the border size. Can you see that, Nicolette?
Yep.
That kind of thing. And if we just plant that as densely as we can, and then I'll go on to the next. Yeah, do you want to help yourself? If we put it in the middle, yeah. Any more questions, Balazs, from the? Any questions from you guys while I'm doing this?
Do you prefer the in vitro plants or the potted plants?
I prefer, if I can, I'll use in vitro.
In vitro.
Yeah, because I find good value for money. You get lots of plants for your money, and I don't like pest snails. I don't like algae on my plants, so I find them the best. The species list isn't so comprehensive. There's not as many species available in tissue culture, but they're getting the catalogues are getting bigger all the time. The availability of the species is growing all of the time. So I think Denelay now do Microsaurum, the Java fern in vitro, which is really cool.
Actually, in the catalog here, by the way, we have here the catalog for in vitro species that are available. And as you can see, there are many species, even the Microsaurum that you mentioned. Later you will use this Anubias nana pangolino, which is in vitro also. The Cryptocoryne hobby that you will use soon, it's also in vitro now.
Cool.
So a lot of species,
Yep.
and also the instruction how to use it.
And we also had a question from India.
Cool.
Question was whether we are using tap water or RO water here at Green Aqua.
Okay.
Maybe you can explain, George, why
Yeah.
RO water is better.
Yeah. So it's quite a
Better at all.
it's a subject for debate. I mean, personally at home I use tap water, and the reason for that, I find it more convenient for me, and I find I can grow the plants that I want to grow with it. However, depending on where your tap water is coming from, depending on its conditions, if it has any nasty additives or chemicals, etc. Sometimes reverse osmosis water is better. Plants tend to grow better with softer water. I think the availability of CO2 is higher in lower KH. So reverse osmosis does definitely work and has its advantages. But you will tend to need to re-mineralise the reverse osmosis water. So reverse osmosis water is pure water, effectively. It has nothing in it. But the plants need certain elements in the water. So typically we'll add a GH booster, and what that will do is add certain nutrients such as magnesium and calcium, and they help feed the plants. So I hope that answers your question. But we use our reverse osmosis water in this shop.
Yeah, but for those people who cannot afford or they don't have space to to collect the raw water,
then
it doesn't mean they don't have a plant tank, right? So
here are the remineral.
Okay.
You can use it for the osmosis water.
Yeah, perfect.
okay, so this is one of the products that you can use.
Yeah. So yeah, do not be put off if you can't use reverse osmosis water. Then that's no problem. If you look at all the aquascapes I've created, probably 99% of them have been grown in hard tap water.
Yeah, you guys should check the YouTube channel with George with all these aquariums. George, can you?
Yeah, sure. So I have a very active YouTube channel. I release 2 videos every week. It's normally a mixture of cinematic style video, so a video that's just kind of pretty to look at with music, and then another video which is more of a practical based video, maybe problem solving or a step-by-step aquascape. So every Wednesday and every Sunday I release a new video. Tomorrow's video is going to be a Green Aqua video. So I did some filming yesterday and this morning of the beautiful shop. Myself and Balazs have been editing it. So you can expect a very high quality video of this beautiful shop coming out tomorrow from my channel. If you can find me very easy. I think if you kind of put a few more in between, if you can squeeze them in between, that'd be great. George, if you look for George Farmer on YouTube or type in George Farmer Aquarium or George Farmer Aquascape, then you'll see my channel. You'll see a black and white picture of my face. And then if you subscribe, it's free to subscribe. Some people think you have to pay, but it's totally free. And then you'll get a notification every time I post a new video. There's a little bell icon next to the subscribe button. There's a little bell. If you click that bell, then on your mobile device or your computer, every time I post a new video, it will tell you, and then hopefully you can watch my video. And if you like the videos, then share them. You know, it's free information. It's hopefully trying to inspire, new aquascapers and maybe educate them and just create interest in aquascaping. That's my passion. That's what I love to do. So, and YouTube is an excellent way to help do that. Facebook live streams equally. But if you like something a bit more higher end production, then the YouTube videos are really cool. It looks good, doesn't it?
So it's always a question that how much distance is between the plantlets. So what do you prefer?
Is with carpeting,
How many flowers you have?
it depends how many plants you have. You can plant as densely as you like, effectively. The denser the better. As long as you've got good circulation, those plants are all going to get access to nutrients, access to light. But yeah, if you have a small budget and you want to get the most out of your money, then you can split the plant up into lots and lots of different portions. That's a good idea. I once did a I don't know, can you get the Monte Carlo Iwagumi up? Was it on there?
The Monte Carlo Iwagumi of yours?
Yeah. Did you put it?
There was a story on UKAPS.
Yeah.
So do you want me to switch to UKAPS website?
So we did a live workshop, the latest video you see, and video before that was and then before that it was a cinematic video of an aquascaper 1500, 150 centimetre aquascape.
Okay, so do you want any? Do you have any favorite videos here?
Do that one. That's quite a nice one.
This one?
Yeah. So this is a typical example of one of my videos. This is a cinematic style.
But George, you started to talk about the one pot.
Sorry, yeah, one pot Iwagumi.
Sorry at that time.
I'm sorry to interrupt that.
Yeah, sorry. So I created an Iwagumi, which is a rock-only layout. Thank you, Nicolette.
Let's find that. How can I find that?
If you go on Google and just type in one pot challenge, Monte Carlo, George Farmer. Oh, do you want me to do it?
One
Pot challenge, George Farmer. That should work. So I grew this aquascaper 60 centimetre irigumi. If you go on to
first one.
images.
Images.
Yeah.
This one.
So this was grown from one tissue culture pot. Do you want to show the audience as well?
Yeah, it's already on, so
Oh.
they saw it live.
Okay.
While
These
we
guys here.
while we were doing it. Oh, these guys.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
There.
Who's this?
Oh, thank you. Okay, so that's the Eleocharis pusilla planted. Next we're going to work our way to a small Cryptocoryne. Do we have the Lutea hobbit? Is that
Here,
there?
right now.
Left
Perfect.
side.
Yeah, the left side because the other one is going to...
So this is quite a new Cryptocoryne to the hobby. Thank you. And what I like to do is actually, I'm not going to plant just into the soil. I'm going to plant some of them just in from the Eleocharis, and that helps to create a natural texture. So in nature, we don't suddenly have one species and then another species next to it. They're always kind of mixed a little bit together, and
These
that's.
two.
No, because the other one is only this one. It's an invitation from the
Pangolino is on that.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
And what is very interesting is that at the end it will be not green but purple. It will be purple, brownish purple. That's it.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful crypt. Stays quite small, and I'm just planting it a tiny little bit into the Eleocharis, which just to helps make it look a little bit more natural. And eventually the Eleocharis is going to start carpeting around the crypt, and it should look really beautiful. So these have been pre-prepared, which is very handy for me. Thank you to the people that helped. And then we're doing it on the other side, similar.
I'm going to put the computer here for you, if it doesn't disturb you. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's
here?
fine, mate. Yeah, thank you.
So that you can see if we are showing some pictures, maybe you can talk about them.
Yeah, cool. So I love Cryptocorynes. They're my favourite type of plant. They're all slow growing, very low maintenance. Don't need much light either, so you can grow them without CO2 injection. They don't need high lighting. They can grow in the shade. They do suffer sometimes from what we call crypt melt, and that's basically the plant trying to adapt to its new conditions. It tends to shed its leaves, or the leaves disintegrate. But if it's got a healthy root system, it will just produce new leaves, no problem. And those new leaves will be adapted to their new environment. They'll grow absolutely fine. So if you ever use a new crypt in your tank, don't be scared, don't be worried if it starts to disintegrate, if the leaves start to dissolve. Do not worry. Just leave the plant. Maybe take away those leaves as they start to go. Snip them off, remove them, and then new leaf growth will start quite quickly afterwards. So on screen right now is an old aquascape of mine. This is called Harlequin's Haven. Can you guys see that? It's a 120 centimetre layout. In fact, it's exactly the same size aquarium as this, and a very classic foreground, midground, background kind of aquascape. Just 3 pieces of wood there, all quite vertical. And actually,
That is my favorite, actually.
yeah, Balazs and I discussed this aquascape, and the original intention was to create something quite similar. I had a change of mind because I saw the hardscape and I wanted to do something quite special with what we've got here. But yeah, I think this was 2009, so around about the same time as Green Aqua was formed.
Yeah.
The aquascape, the tank actually had sprung a leak, so unfortunately I had to get rid. But no, it was quite cool. Had Balazs in the background, Crypts and Anubius in the midground, and the foreground was Pagostemon, Helferi and Hemianthus cuba. Okay, so we've got our small plants now, our foreground plants in. Now we can move on to our larger crypts. So we've got some already in here that just need preparing quickly. They won't take long to prepare. I'll do one pot just to show the audience.
Is the Wendy?
Yeah,
Green?
do all the Wendy green and brown together. I'll mix them up. Yeah. Okay, so to prepare a pot, have we got a bin? Yeah. Cool. So we grab the pot, remove it from the rock wall. This is the rock wall. This is where it's nutrient rich. These are grown hydroponically in the nurseries. That means this bit's in nutrient rich water, and then the plant actually grows out of the top into the air. So we remove that rock wall. Like so, and then what I do is just get the roots, tear them, so there's about a centimetre or so, and then split that.
How many do you need?
We'll do 8 altogether. There should be enough in there. Maybe not that many, 6 maybe. And then we split that into 2 portions. We could split it into more if we wanted to. We want to go quite dense. And then push that in. Like so. Cute. Oh, okay. So, yeah, the plant list I've got right in front of me. Eleocharis pusilla. This is the dwarf hairgrass here. Cryptocoryne hobbit, this small crypt here. Moving into the Cryptocoryne Wendy green. And then some white, can we just tear the roots? So,
Like
yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, like that. Okay. So the reason we tear the roots is because it stimulates new root growth, and it helps to, it just helps with planting, just makes planting much easier. Okay.
some more?
Yes, please. Yeah. Some of the brown, if you can. There's Cryptocoryne Wendy brown as well. That's the one. Yeah. So Cryptocoryne Wendy, there's quite a few varieties of Wendy. It's probably about 10 or so. Green and brown are very popular. The reason for that is their colours, obviously, the green tends to stay green, and sometimes it has like a red little vein running through it. And the brown obviously goes like a nice brown colour. Depending on your light, depending on the nutrient conditions, can change the colour and even the texture and size of the plant as well. And that's one of the great things about crypts. They're almost like a surprise plant. They very often will change their appearance quite a lot from what we call their immersed state. So that's the immersed state. That's how they look when they're grown out of water. And then as they adapt to their underwater life, they change quite considerably. And sometimes it's that change that can cause them to melt, which we talked about earlier. So I'm going to... Oh, sugar.
George, do we want to talk about the plant use delimitation? It's sometimes the aquascaping get a lot of critics about using only mosses and small plants. It may be kind of a trend these days, especially on contests, but
yeah, I'm a big fan of, like I said earlier, the classic nature aquarium. Loads of plants. They help to keep algae away. You know, it's much easier to live with a heavily planted aquarium because that's going to help fight algae. It looks beautiful. It's healthier. It's better for the fish. The plants produce oxygen, and so you know you might look at these aquascaping contests and see all these 90% hardscape, 10% moss, and it's not really.
But it's changing all the times, right? So
yeah.
The layout what you shown 10 years ago.
Have some more.
Your harlequin layout at that time it was
From the same?
Yeah, please.
Brown?
Yes.
It looked pretty new and trendy, right? And then it's up to 10 years. Things are changing, and now the super minimal plants and moss and too hardscapey.
Yes, exactly. And aquascaping is a it's an art form, and so it goes through trends and styles, and the contests are partly responsible for that, because they kind of set the standard, if you like, and then people follow that standard and they follow that trend. But in my opinion, I'm very much into the heavily planted style. I think it's a nice style to promote, especially to beginners, because to actually achieve a long-term aquascape with very dominant hardscape and minimal planting, it's actually quite hard to achieve an algae-free, a nuisance algae-free setup. So,
George, we had another question. The question was, why do you start with background plants, or is that something that you normally do? Because some people will start with filling up the aquarium with just a couple of centimeters of water and start planting the foreground, and as they gradually move back, they end the planting process with the background plants. So why did you do it?
Why do I do it like the way I did? Well, there's no foreground plants here, obviously, so I had to start with here. But I started with the smallest plants first, so not necessarily foreground, midground, background, but the smallest going up to the largest. And then I'm working my way from the outside, working inwards. And the reason for that is because the long red stem plants I'm going to be putting in the centre area, if I put them in first, they would flop over and they'd make it really hard to plant around. But it's whatever suits you, whatever technique that you come up with that works for you is absolutely fine. There's no, the techniques I'm talking about and encourage are techniques that work for me. Not to say that they're better than anyone else's technique, but they're just something that I've kind of developed over the years, and I know that work very well for me. So, more crypts.
More crypts.
Yeah.
Which one? When the green?
Both together. And we'll mix them up.
And we have another question. One viewer told us that he had seen that people were using pure RO water and not remineralize it, and is that bad for the plants?
Well, actually, it's interesting because it's actually very hard to get pure RO. There'll normally be a TDS of about 5, so there will be some very, very small amount of minerals in it. And what you can do is there's a soil substrate. A soil will tend to buffer the pH as well, so you can actually have almost zero alkalinity, almost 0 KH, and you can keep a very stable pH with the soil. So you can use pure RO, but you'll definitely need some minerals in there for the plants. Plants will not grow without any nutrients. They need food. You might buy a mature specimen, you might buy a potted plant, and it might have a large nutrient store in it, so it will last a good few weeks, maybe a month or so without any nutrients, especially if you have a nutrient rich soil. Thank you. But you will definitely need nutrients at some stage. Okay, that's fine, no problem. Yeah.
George, if someone is just starting up right now,
Yeah.
what do you recommend? Where to start? What would be the first step to
With
follow?
with aquascaping, if they're just getting into aquascaping, I would actually, the biggest tip I would do is find a mentor. Find one person that you know is very good and is willing to help you. And then follow their advice, because what can happen, the internet is very good and it's a brilliant tool, but it can be very, very confusing for some people, especially beginners, because there's a lot of conflicting advice on there. If you stick with one person's advice and you follow that consistently, then hopefully you're going to achieve good results, because you're replicating, you're copying what they do, and there's no reason why you can't achieve the same results. So I think that's a really good a tip for beginners, is the copying someone. Nothing wrong with copying a layout, copying the techniques that they've used to get that layout. Another one would be invest in decent equipment. Thank you. Try not to skimp on plants, especially. So sometimes I find someone will spend a lot of money on a system, you know, high-end lighting, CO2, nice tank, nice cabinet, and then when they get to the aquascaping, they'll often not, they won't spend enough on the hardscape and the plants, and they'll wonder why their aquascape doesn't look very good. So if you're on a strict budget, then go for something quite small, you know, maybe a nano tank, you know, a small 30 centimeter cube is very inexpensive to stock. Equipment is cheaper and easier, quicker to maintain as well. So yeah, those things I think would be my top tips for a beginner.
Right, let me take a little bit on the comments that we have. I have seen that Juris from Germany said that somebody should invent black colored filter floss because that would be a huge hit.
Yeah, that's true. That's very good.
And Malcolm Pollock was asking, what do you use for white background? He used window frosting film, and it didn't look as good as he had hoped. So do you have any suggestions to white background?
Normally I don't use a background, and I'll have a pale wall behind me, and then if I want backlighting, I'll light that wall. If you don't have a pale wall, then you're quite limited. You could use just white paint or white paper attached to the back of the tank. But yeah, normally what we do is have a pale wall behind the tank, have the tank actually sort of 20 centimeters or so from that wall, and if you're using suspended lighting, that will create the backlight effect anyway, because it will light the wall behind you. Okay, we're adding the last of the crypts now.
And there's another question, what is the best way to get small pieces of rocks to do the detail? If you cannot seem to find the right small pieces,
you can get a larger rock, and then you can smash it with hammer and chisel. Make sure you wear eye protection and don't do it near any cars or windows. But yeah, most rocks will break up with a hammer and a chisel. Some rocks very easily, dragonstone, very, very easy to break.
Okay, so Scam Princess, hello from Ultimate Fish Keeping Show on YouTube.
Oh, well, hello. Yeah, I did a live stream on YouTube earlier, and I said if anyone watches the live stream on Green Aqua, then make sure you say hello. So, hello, Ultimate Fish Keeping Show. Thanks for joining.
And Jagdish Mohan was asking what was the highest number of viewers we got for a live video ever, and if we can beat it today. And well, George is certainly trying to beat it, and obviously when Juris was here, that was also a very popular video, but I'm happy to announce that almost all Green Aqua videos are pretty popular, and thanks to you guys who are watching us. Let me see if we have any other questions.
Okay, so this is a new plant to the hobby. This is really interesting. Who's got the camera? Okay. So this is Anubias pangolino. This is a Denale, originally a Denale plant. Still is a Denale plant, obviously. One of the smallest varieties of Anubias. I believe it's a mutation. And the reason it's called pangolino is because the guy that found it, Massimo, an Italian aquatic plant enthusiast, it looks like pangolin, you know, with the scales of the skin represent that, so that's why they call it pangolino.
It's probably the smallest.
Yeah. So what I'm doing now, rather than using super glue or any wire fishing line or anything, I'm just finding cracks in the wood, and I'm just gently pushing them in and then that will be absolutely fine to secure the plant. It's just so much easier, less messy, and less time consuming.
Let's talk a little bit about plant problems, because Fabian Förster said that he was using ADA substrate system for his ADA Amazonia soil, and he was using RO water remineralized, but his plants were starting to dissolve after a few days, and obviously that's a problem, but that can be, plant melt can be caused by many things. So
yes.
can you elaborate, please?
Of course. So without knowing the finer details of the system, the plants he used, where he got them from, how healthy they were, if he had any CO2, if he added any liquid fertilizers, there's so many elements, there's so many factors at play in an aquarium, with aquarium plants and a planted aquarium. It's impossible to say it's any one thing. It's normally a combination. Thank you. It's normally a combination of problems. So it's quite common that someone will blame a product that they've used, but actually sometimes it's more to do with more things than the one thing. So a lot of the time, if a plant melts within a few days, it's probably the plant itself.
It's a living creature, right? So
yeah.
They travel on winter time or in a hot summer. They also can get a lot of stress.
Yeah.
So
my advice is always buy the healthiest plants you can. Establish a relationship with the shop, with the store. Ask when they get their delivery of plants from the nursery, from the greenhouse. And that you're guaranteed to have a healthy plant then, because it's in a lot of shops they don't really look after their plants so well. I mean, the Green Aqua is very good. They have CO2 injection in their plant system, but a lot of shops will just have it in a, not very well lit, no CO2, hardly any circulation, and the plants are slowly dying in that system. So if you bought your plants from a shop like that, then maybe the plants were kind of on their last legs anyway, and so it was more to do with the plant not being very healthy.
Okay, so Tung Tran is asking us what is the focus point of this layout. So we will move the camera and we will ask George to show it to us.
The focal point is here at the moment, this protruding vertical element. It's about a third of the way along, golden ratio, but we will have a definite focal point soon when we add our red planting here. There's going to be, red plants, or stem plants. So that will be the focal point for sure. It'll be going to be quite a symmetrical layout. We don't often use symmetry in aquascaping. It tends to not make your eye very relaxed, but sometimes rules are there to be kind of broken. So symmetry it's not going to be too symmetrical. The wood is very different, this side is very different to this side, so it's not going to be overly symmetrical.
So how are we standing? What is the percentage of the plants that we already used in there? How do you think we're progressing?
Well, we've done probably 80% of the plants now. So the only other plants we have are the Bucophalandra and the red. So is the Bucophalandra prepared? Can we prepare that? Yeah.
More or less. Maybe we should discuss a little bit about the coverage, which is not rockwood.
All of them?
This one it's cocoa texture. It's 100% natural.
All of the Bucophalandra, yeah, please. Yeah.
Environmental friendly, if I can say like that. And it's very easy to take out the roots from this cocoa.
Right. Thank you. we can ask somebody to help us to spray the plants, because I can see that they're drying out a little bit.
So, Anubias, very low light tolerant plant. It will grow well, very well in the shade. And this is one of the most I really like Pangolino. I love the small leaves on it. Very new to the hobby. It's only been around probably 2 years.
2 years, yes.
Yeah.
Initially was a version on the potted version.
Yeah.
And then we decided to produce it only on in vitro.
Okay. I think I was the first person in the UK to ever have it.
You're in good relation with Stefan.
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Do you use large leaf Anubias as well?
In a very large tank, I would. Yeah, but the largest I tend to use would be Nana. I have used Barteri, the really big leaf, but in a big kind of jungle style with big textures. So.
Amano said it can break the composition, the large leaf Anubias.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree. Can you have some ready for me there?
Yes, of course.
George, and did you change in the past decade from that point of view? That I've seen you had many escapes, and probably you've seen on the live stream also. We had escapes from you with the Hemianthus Cuba and only just minimal Iwagumi style with Ossicoris and Parvula, and now maybe using more kind of standardized plant, or is it something has changed and you probably put the priority to less maintenance?
Yes, I'm a hobbyist, and I'll always have an aquarium at home. I think that's really important for me personally. I like to, although I'm a professional, I like to keep my hobby as well. So I always have an aquascape at home. But because I obviously spend a lot of time away from home, it's important that the aquarium is low maintenance. So I'll often use Crypts, Java Fern, easy low maintenance carpeting plants, Eliocharis, sometimes mosses. So my style has changed more through practical reasons.
Yeah. So if your life is busy and you're traveling a lot, it doesn't mean that you couldn't have an aquarium at home.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, exactly.
Slow down a bit.
Yeah, slow down.
Use the correct plants for that, right?
My beautiful fiance, she will feed the plants and the fish for me. I just make sure that the aquarium's top right up, and then when I get home, hopefully it looks okay.
I'm sure it will.
Yeah. So Bucovalandra, very similar to Anubias in the fact that it's a rheophyte. So we attach it to our decor, wood or rock. Very slow growing as well. Can we prepare those last Crypts?
The brown one or the
Yeah,
white?
let's go brown, please.
Brown. Okay. Have here
you.
some more. Actually, there's the last two.
Yeah, that's better. I'm just going to fill in this gap here. That in there. So we can hear the camera snapping away there, and I think that's a good opportunity to talk about photography. So, perfect, thank you. I'm a very keen photographer. I actually got into photography because of aquascaping. So when I started writing for Practical Fish Keeping magazine in 2006, I thought it would be a good idea not just to give them the words, but to give them the pictures as well. So I learnt photography quite quickly. I learned how to shoot aquascapes and fish, which is, as you probably know, quite challenging. But I became quite proficient at it, and it's actually became a very big passion of mine. I almost enjoy the photography as much as the aquascaping. It's really cool to see the final picture. So I love the whole process. So from the empty aquarium, which is very exciting for me because that's the stage where it's empty and it's infinite potential, and then all the way through to growing it, watch the aquarium plants grow, maintaining it. I actually enjoy maintenance as well, and choosing the fish, you know, watching the fish, you know, be very happy in the aquascape, living with the aquascape, watching it evolve and develop. And then the final thing for me is that final picture, not necessarily for contests, but for magazines. I write for magazines or for a video for my YouTube channel, so that I find the whole process very exciting.
So you see now the Green Aqua website with the gallery tanks, and as you can see, we also put the emphasis on photography.
I mean, you need good photography to do your aquascape justice. If you want to reflect the beauty of the aquascape to other people around the world, then you need to be able to get a good photo. You know, typically I'll use a digital SLR for the final shots, but now camera phones are becoming very advanced, and you can get very, very good quality photos.
This is the same rock.
Yeah, beautiful.
Stone.
Yeah.
This is how it looks like underwater later. Nano aquariums.
Very cool.
Sometimes I see that people are not so patient about the hobby, and on these photographs you easily can see that how much the plant grows from one week to the other. So sometimes it's helpful to just documenting for yourself and see how the layout is progressing.
Yeah.
This beautiful scape was done by Tamás Danyiko, a Green Aqua team member. One of my favorite scapes at Green Aqua.
Oh wow.
A lot of moss in there and only landscapes, rocks.
Very cool. Yeah, you can do all of that.
Both sides?
Yes, please. Yeah.
And so on. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them, and we will just ask George to answer them. You can ask any questions related to aquascaping. George will answer it live. And if you need any inspiration, you can just visit greenaqua.com, and at the bottom of the page you will find a lot of information on algae, dealing with algae, on different plants, how to plant, how to structure your layout, and generally you will find all kind of handy information there. So make sure you visit greenaqua.com.
Yes, please.
And today we have George Farmer from UK here in the Green Aqua Gallery, and George was kind enough to travel here just for us to scape this 120 by 45 by 45 tank, which is almost ready. We are at the end of the planting process, and we're not going to wait for us to fill it up with water. There's no point for that, but we will post regularly about the progress of this tank.
Yeah.
Green Aqua usually keeps a tank for at least 1 year after it's set up, maybe even more. We like to change the layout and to have new layouts every year, maybe in a tank. We have 22 layouts in the Green Aqua Gallery, and we want to inspire people who come here, and we want to inspire through the photographs that we make. As George said, the photos are very important. Back to you, George.
Yeah, thanks, Balazs. Yeah, so what can I say? I just love aquascaping, and if there's anything I'd encourage you guys to do, if you're not already into aquascaping, then and you have an aquarium at home, then you don't have to spend a lot of money. You can still use some aquascaping principles in your aquarium. Think about maybe adding some more hardscape to it. If you don't want to get CO2 injection, you can still grow very easy plants and not necessarily need lots of lighting. So plants like Anubias, Java fern, Cryptocoryne, various mosses, you can still grow a beautiful aquascape without necessarily investing in CO2. Although I do recommend it, you will get the best results with it. But equally, I understand some people can't afford it, and some people are very wary of CO2. So.
Yuris, our good friend Yuris, is asking how soon can you stock the aquarium with fish and shrimp? How much time do you need for them to be safe when introduced? And he's asking if you can speed the process up.
Yeah, sure. So I would always recommend, if you're especially using a soil substrate, recommend testing the water for ammonia and nitrites before adding any livestock. Typically you might have to wait for 2 to 3 weeks depending on the soil you're using. If you have a mature filter, you can add the livestock much sooner. You can use, there are bacterial products out there which will allow for instant stocking. So Evolution Aqua, they do aquarium, they call it Aquarium Pure, and they do Aquarium Pure Bomb. And you can literally add all of your fish, and the aquarium bomb all at the same time, and that will be absolutely fine. So, for me, the fish selection and the addition. Oh, you've got a product there as well. Okay.
Yes, in my opinion, just to answer to Yuris about that, we have a great product. It's aquarium starter ready. You can put the fish with this product after only 24 hours. So it's guaranteed. It has a huge amount of bacteria. The so-called secret is very simple. You have 3 different species of bacteria which are dedicated for the peak of ammonia, and so on.
Right, thank you for that. We also the viewers do not really like the fact that we do not want to show the colander in action. So I'm going to promise that at the end of it, before we finish the podcast, we will actually start filling it up so that you can see that trademark piece of George Farmer equipment. Can you show it to the guys, because we always talk about it, but it's not. That's it. Move closer to it, Ati. Colander in action. And also.
And why we are using it, for those who don't know?
Yeah. Why are you using it?
So if you imagine pouring a bucket or a hose straight onto the soil, it's going to really disrupt it and cause cloudy water. So if you pour it through this, it just disrupts the flow and it makes it much easier. I'll use it all the time.
Okay, and some a Hungarian friend of ours, Váradi Tamás, is asking, is concerned about the plants not being in the shade. If it's a problem for them to be exposed to direct light like that.
You might get a little bit of algae on the plants. It's a very low light tolerant layout, so I'll potentially raise the lighting higher to get lower lighting. The Ludwigia Super Red doesn't actually need much light to stay red either. So if it is an issue, you can just lower the lighting level. You can add like nearite snails as well to help keep the algae away. Lots of algae eating shrimp. Amano shrimps, Caridina multidentata. So there are lots of things you can do to help minimise any algae on the plants. But the question is relevant. These plants are shade-loving plants and they are very near the light. But with good CO2, good nutrients, hopefully those plants will be able to use use that light effectively and grow to the point where they'll fight the algae off. So I'm not too worried.
We have more questions, and
Okay.
going to.
Yes, please. Yeah.
All of them?
Yeah.
So George,
Do we have antique clay?
the question is if you prefer glass diffuser, atomizer, or reactor. So what is your favorite way to dissolve CO2?
In a larger aquarium, I prefer inline diffuser. Anything over sort of 150 litres. I would tend to go 100 litres. In fact, I'd probably over that. I would use an inline diffuser, and then for smaller aquariums, I would use an in-tank diffuser. In my experience, it's easier to get the CO2 distributed more effectively in a larger aquarium with an inline CO2 diffuser. I know some people have different experiences, but in the aquascapes I've done, that's the method I prefer. It's a good question.
There's another question. The question is if would you prefer to have lower light hours, so to light for a shorter period of time, or you want to have a longer lighting period but with lower light intensity?
I tend to stick quite religiously to 8 hours. I never really go above that. And then I'll just, the lighting level will depend on how fast I want everything to grow and what species I'm using. So I don't really have a preference. The preference is determined by the type of aquascape I'm creating and the maintenance levels that I'm prepared to undertake. So this is a cool plant. This is Ludwigia super red. I believe it's another name for it is palustris. Really easy. Doesn't need actually much light to go red, unlike a lot of other plants. So it's a really nice, and it's a fast grower as well, which is a really good thing in a brand new tank, because, like I said earlier, algae is very common in a new setup, and if we encourage fast plant growth, then we can help fight off the algae.
It's reacting very well to be pruning.
Yeah, you can trim it quite easily.
The color will become like that. Here, on the tank, that kind of intense red. It's a catcher, if I can say like that, on the image.
There was a question about water hardness and CO2.
Okay.
If you have a lot of CO2, can that reduce the water hardness? I don't think so.
No.
So actually CO2 does not change the water hardness. Water hardness is composed of all kinds of salts, calcium and magnesium salts in the water.
Yeah.
And the only way to get rid of those would be an RO filter.
Yeah.
You have to push the water through a membrane, which will actually filter out. I'm using the word filtering out, but that's not how it works. But it will flush the calcium and magnesium out of the water, leaving just the pure H2O. CO2 actually affects the pH of the aquarium. Can you tell us a little bit about the pH and how it affects filtering bacteria and stuff?
Yeah, so pH is how acidic or alkaline the water is. So pH of 7 is neutral, which means it's neither acidic or alkaline. The more CO2 we add, the lower the pH goes, the more acidic the water becomes. And that's because CO2, carbon dioxide, gets converted into carbonic acid in water, and that will reduce the pH. So when you're injecting CO2, and if you have very soft water, that pH can actually drop very, very low, and that can be harmful for filter bacteria. So do bear that in mind. Another interesting thing about pH is it affects the toxicity of ammonia. So ammonia and ammonium are in balance at pH 7, and the more acidic you become, so you go down to pH 6 say, the shift from ammonia to ammonium is in favour of ammonium, which is NH4, which is much less toxic than NH3, which is ammonia. If you go to pH 8, that shift in the NH3, NH4 is much more in favour of an ammonia, NH3, which is very, very toxic.
Christoph Riekmans asks you about the pH regulator, and he says that he knows that you're not using it, and he asks what's the reason behind that.
pH controllers, I've never actually used them, never needed to. I just rely on a solenoid to switch the CO2 on a couple of hours before the lights come on, and then the CO2 off before the lights go off, and that is all I need. I have heard horror stories about pH controllers going wrong, overdosing CO2, killing the fish. The pH probe needs calibrating regularly, and they're quite expensive to buy in the first place. So my personal advice is they're not necessary, and I'd rather invest that whatever money they cost in better hardscape or better CO2 regulator or better plants or better lighting, something that's definitely going to give you better results.
Yuris again, and he asks you what kind of start do you prefer? Do you prefer the slow or short light period, or low nutrient level or high nutrient level at the beginning, or would you like to have full light, max nutrients? What's your take on starting an aquarium?
Yeah, I keep 8 hours all of the time, so that's always consistent. Often if I'm using CO2 injection, and I'll go very, very high CO2 with no livestock for the first few weeks to really get those plants adapted and growing healthily. And then as I come to sort of 3 or 4 weeks, I'm thinking about what fish I want to put in the tank in terms of aesthetics, how they're going to look, how are they going to suit the aquascape, are they going to suit the tank size, and that will give me plenty of time to think about that. And then after 3 or 4 weeks, I'll turn the CO2 down gradually and add my livestock when the CO2 is at a safe level. But during those first 4 weeks, it's all about changing lots of water to minimise the algae. But keep the lighting, same intensity, 8 hours, consistent all through all that period. The only thing I change is the big water changes and that CO2. I'll keep nutrients levels up as well. Dose every day from day one. Plants will happily use those nutrients. And yeah, I try to keep it as simple as I can. I never test my water either. I just rely on slightly overdosing a little bit of fertiliser every day, and then that 50% water change every week resets those nutrient levels, make sure the plants are well fed. The big water change also dilutes any waste organics, which is a known algae trigger as well, and that's the method I use. It's a very simple form of the estimative index, but I'm using a liquid fertiliser instead of dry chemicals.
Alright, so we are approaching the end of the live broadcast with the time running out.
Yeah.
And I would like to ask you how we stand, and please inform us on what's to come yet.
Yeah. So next step is detailing. So we have some small Frodo stone here, which we can add to the foreground just to add some extra details. So I look for the most empty areas, and then I think about what stone is going to look good in that area. So that one just there. And then let's go for one here.
Viktor, can you help us if we have any more questions? Please look at that.
So just adding the smaller stones around the larger stones, this helps to act as a transition. It looks more natural. In nature, you'll often see smaller stones surrounding a larger stone, probably because they've fallen off or been eroded away and chipped off over the time, over the thousands of years. And that's the kind of effect we're trying to achieve, a naturalistic effect.
George, a question from Facebook from Carol. Would you recommend a dry start?
No. That's easy.
It was a fashion at some point.
Yeah.
Why not?
I don't, because the plants, typically the plants come from the nurseries immersed state. And so the benefit of, the potential benefit of a dry start is the fact that the plant hasn't got to adapt to its submersed state, but it has to adapt at some point. So in my opinion, you might as well just get it adapted from day one. Now, with the advent and the more popularity of tissue culture plants, and my preference for them, if I can use them, is that the fact that they're already adapted to their submersed state. So actually you might have quite a hard time doing dry start method with tissue culture plants, so that's something to bear in mind as well. But I have done dry start and it worked, but my preference is the standard.
Another question from David. Do you prefer a CO2 24/7 or only with the lights on?
I have the CO2 normally come on 2 or 3 hours before the lights, so the CO2 levels at a good level when the lights come on, and then I normally have the CO2 go off half an hour to an hour as the lights go, before the lights go off, so that the plants use the residual levels of CO2. So now I'm just sprinkling the Rio Negro? Rio Zingu. Yeah. Just getting little handfuls and just sprinkling them around these smaller stones. You can even put some on top of the, just add extra texture.
Another question from Igor. Do you start with the accumulation dosing or you dose a large amount at the start to X ppm and then dose it daily?
What am I dosing? CO2 or?
It's the fertilizer.
I keep it quite regular, so I follow the instructions on the bottle. I have my own liquid fertilizer and it's got very distinct instructions according to the tank size and the type of tank you've got, so I follow that to the letter. If I've got a low energy tank, it's 1 milliliter per 50 litres of aquarium water per day, and then if it's a medium energy, that's 2 millilitres per day, and a high energy is 5 mil per day per 50 litres, and I stick to that from day one. And then I just keep an eye on any plant deficiencies. If there's any, then I add more. Simple as that.
So not too much measuring, right?
No. I haven't tested my water in about 10 years for nitrates, phosphates, other nutrients. So
this is interesting about the hobby that some people is more about this measuring part and go into the super tiny details with test kits and
it's not needed.
Microscopical investigation.
Yeah, some people like that, but I just like to have a nice algae-free planted tank, and it's not needed. You know, the proof. If you look at my aquascapes, the proof is there that the system I use works. You know. Okay, ready for water. Colander time. Yeah.
We have a full shot of the aquarium, and let's take a quick picture, maybe, of it.
Sure. Do you want that there or not?
Yeah, take it off first, please, and then we can introduce it back on. see if we could switch these off. Can we switch off, you guys? Can we switch these off for a second? Because of the reflection.
The black sheet.
Yeah, maybe the black sheet.
Okay. It's in your office. Daniel, can you get the black sheet from
My office.
It's by the, you'll see it on the floor on the left.
Oh, we don't need it. It's okay. Right, good job. Okay, so this is the final
It's the
step
final
before.
countdown.
Okay, so please tell us once again as a summary what we have here and how we made it.
Yeah. So we've gone for a classic nature aquarium style. I've used a combination of Frodo stone and ironwood.
Those are Frodo stones in the foreground.
Yeah. And then we've used a cosmetic foreground. This is Denelay quartz gravel, natural white, I think it's called. Crystal quartz. And then we've used a sprinkling of Rio Zingu, Planter Hunter gravel, and that just all complements each other to create a really naturalistic appearance. I think it looks great.
Okay. What
And
kind
then-
of plants we used?
And then we've gone into escaper soil in the back, and then in the planting in there we've used Eleocharis pusilla on the perimeter around here, and the same on the edge here. And then that's gone into some Cryptocoryne lutea hobbit, which is a small crypt. That's transitioning up to a medium crypt, a Cryptocoryne wenditii brown and green, which are all mixed together almost randomly to create a more complex texture. And then moving on to the Rheophyte plants, we've got a combination of Anubias pangolino in vitro, Anubias bonsai potted version, and then we've got Bucephalandra wavy green, and they're all Rheophyte plants that are attached to the woods and in between the rocks. And our final plant, our focal point plant, is the Ludwigia super red, which it adds colour to the layout. It's pretty much central. The layout is quite symmetrical, and the focal point is very central with the dominant red feature. But I'm quite confident that in a few weeks, as it matures, it will be a very beautiful layout.
Okay, just a short information. We have viewers from Australia, 1 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
Watching us.
Good day, mate. I'm hopefully going to be going over to Australia and doing a workshop there at some point next year.
Right, so let's start filling it up with the water.
I think we should close the session with the
They
colander
want it,
filling
they
this
want
up.
it.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
would be a great trademark. But before doing that, maybe we should just say thank you to George, right, for coming and doing the workshop for us.
That's my
It was
pleasure.
a long-awaited program for us. We didn't knew that at the past that we will have such an event at least on the time, right? So I'm very happy that we managed to do that, and hopefully everyone on the internet who followed the live show enjoyed the event and,
Oh yeah.
and learned at least some portion of information about it, because everyone is doing kind of different
Different
things,
ways, yeah.
practical stuff, and George is we even at Green Aqua we learned a lot from him in the past, like I don't know, the dry start, most stuff, the good filtration, the correct maintenance, and
Yeah, you inspired us
Yeah,
so much.
basically all the things
We're
that you
really
can see here.
grateful for that.
yeah, with all the things what you can see here and what is running, and we are photographing it. It's thankful for you, George. So
Thank you, it's an honour. Yeah.
Right, and thank you for visiting us also and making this beautiful aquarium. I hope we can host it for a long time successfully and pay a tribute to you being here.
absolutely, and thanks
And
for
Alex, and thanks
from
also
Denelay.
for Denelay for sponsoring us.
Thank you
It
for
was
you
a huge
guys.
thing, and we have a good friendly relationship and for many years, and you have a great company, great products, and
Thank you very much.
Thank
very
you
much.
again.
Thank you very much because you know so well our products. You make me speechless. You talk a lot, but you know very well our products.
George, when is the next event when people can see you?
I have an event in Rockpool Aquatics in Coventry in England, December the 7th. So if you are based in the UK and want to make a special journey to the UK, then that's where I'll be. So.
Yeah, and Germany?
Oh, my neck. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
The
That's
European.
embarrassing. Sorry, Yuris.
You have too much. You have too much on your mind.
Yeah,
It was long days.
So Thursday, I'm flying to Frankfurt to see my German aquascaper friend Yuris, and then the following Saturday we have the EAPLC party ceremony, award ceremony, where I'll be doing a workshop. So I'm sure that will be broadcast as well, so everyone can look forward to
Other
that.
than that, where people can reach you if they want to find your works?
Yeah, just Google George Farmer Aquarium or George Farmer Aquascape on Google. You can find my business Facebook page is the Aquascaper. You can find me on YouTube. Just type in George Farmer Aquarium. You can see my channel, and then you can find me on Instagram at the Aquascaper. But yeah, I'm very easy to find on the internet.
All right. So thanks again,
Thank you.
and thanks for all of you joining us. We will start filling up the aquarium, and stay tuned for updates on this aquarium.
Yeah, cool.
And
Thanks,
then
mate.
thanks.
Thanks for having
Thanks
me.
so
It's
much.
been amazing.
And it's time for the most important things, right?
yeah, time for filling it up.